Alrighty, to conclude this video series on the Commission New World Order, I'm going to do my best to help you understand what it all means if you're now or in the near future thinking of entering the residential real estate market. Keep in mind that all that follows is my best understanding right now. After the final hearing at the end of November, and as agents and transacting clients start to live and work with the new forms and requirements, there may be legal or just cultural changes or updates to what I'm about to say. As always, I will update you as soon as I learn anything new, and you can always reach out to me with any questions. Again, I'm going to talk about changes as they relate to both buyers and sellers, so each can understand the other's negotiating position. It will help you all. So I'll start with you, potential buyers. If you are thinking of becoming a buyer soon, I hope you've watched the preceding videos and you've gleaned a bit already from the three videos in this series. First, as you've already learned, an agent will ask you to sign a buyer representation agreement. I understand this might be off-putting to you and not what you may be used to if you've shopped for a home before. But please understand that since August 17th, 2024, we must have you do so to be in compliance. So if you intend to shop around for a brokerage and an agent, keep that in mind. Any agent who offers to show you property without asking you to sign one, well, it's like the adage about the sort of people who offer you rides at airports. Run away. But also keep in mind that these agreements will be full of negotiable terms. You can negotiate with the agent that the term is for one address only, or for certain delineated properties for a certain brief period of time. For example, on one date only, or only for 1 week, or only for 1 month. Because we understand that this might be very reasonable on your part. You might want to go slowly in the relationship. Take the agent for a test drive, so to speak, to make sure you're a good fit for each other. You might want to have your term of your agreement be possibly in only 1 or 2 zip codes, because you may not know yet exactly where you want to buy, but you want to retain an expert in each area. You may be asked to pay a retainer fee, and that fee may or may not be applied toward your total amounts due at closing should you successfully contract with that agent's skill and guidance while represented by that brokerage. Or you might need to pay that fee at the end of the agreement's term date. For example, if you decide to call it quits with that agent. This will be a separate flat fee in addition to a likely percentage of the sales price, but also perhaps a flat fee that the agent will negotiate with you as commission to be paid to your brokerage, as you learned in the earlier videos. You will definitely be asked to sign that you are not concurrently working with any other agent. It will be called an exclusive representation agreement. Although there are non-exclusive representation agreements, unless you're honest about working with other agents in other zip codes. And there are agreements called notices of no agency. I don't imagine many agents will offer you that latter one. We do expect to be paid. We are not, it bears repeating, volunteers. We don't show properties for fun just because a consumer is curious about a certain home. Next, within that agreement, you'll be asked to guarantee you will pay your own brokerage for the fiduciary duties, care, responsibility, and confidentiality that they take in finding you properties that meet your criteria, and show you those properties, and point out any significant details or defects about those properties while you're there, and negotiate contracts to get you the best possible terms. You will be told that perhaps even most likely, the seller will offer to pay the buy-side commission or to pay some portion of it. If the seller is not offering 100% of what you negotiated with your agent in your agreement, you will be agreeing to make up the difference. But this will all depend on many factors: the location, the price point, the condition, the competition, and overall macro market conditions. You certainly may be able to ask the seller to pay all or part of your obligation to your own brokerage as part of the purchase offer. This is called a concession. You will discuss with your agent whether this is a wise negotiating move given all of those other factors. Frankly, please keep in mind that this change is happening when we are in a very robust seller's market. Buyer demand shot way up in the pandemic. It has somewhat leveled out, but inventory is in very short supply across price points. Therefore, as long as that basic economic condition lasts, sellers as a whole tend to have the upper hand in purchase offer negotiations. Buyers will be advised by their agents in how to approach asking for any concessions given that reality. But since it will depend on a highly specific set of characteristics for any given property, your agent will bring their years of experience and expertise to bear in advising you. It's what we do as professionals. When we eventually move to a more balanced market, or even a buyer's market, we agents will advise accordingly for those conditions. Buyers, the last thing you should keep in mind is that you and your agent will need to work even more closely with your lender, assuming you're getting a mortgage. While the amount a buyer can receive in seller concessions has always been limited as a percentage of the loan, now that you may be asking for the seller to pay some or all of the buy-side commission, you'll need to balance that amount with the added concessions you may already plan to or potentially be planning to ask for. For example, due to inspection items you want the seller to cover, or to cover your other closing costs. You may, as I previously mentioned, need to pay all or some of your own brokerage's commission. And if you and the seller agree on that term, let your lender know right away to make sure it will be copacetic with the terms of your loan. But there are many ways this may occur, not so easily captured in a funnel metaphor. Instead, there's a busy flowchart. You will need to carefully weigh the pros and cons of these various scenarios of full or partial payment of compensation to your own brokerage yourself, as a direct payment to your brokerage, or building it into your loan. Different scenarios will affect your monthly payment, but also your tax liability. Think about your net. Talk about it early and often with both your lender and your agent as they help you craft your offer. So, potential sellers, what about you? If you've been listening carefully, your ears have pricked up regarding some key changes that will affect you. Offering the buy-side commission is not a no, but a maybe? Well, that's kind of complicated. For sure, it's less clear-cut than we're all used to, and I'll get to that. But first, while I cannot speak to any or all brokerage forms other than from my own, Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, the listing agreements you will see as you interview agents may now divide commission into 3 separate areas. The first area is the percentage you will negotiate with your own agent and brokerage to pay for your own representation and marketing of your property. To repeat, this will likely be a lower number than you're used to seeing or hearing about because, remember, there is now no assumption or promise this will be shared with the buyer's brokerage. And you will see a reminder that this is negotiable. However, my advice is to remember that you and your agent will both have a sense of what the market will bear. Please keep in mind that as with pizza, groceries, or brokerage services, you generally get what you pay for. The second area will cover what, if any, do you intend to offer the buy side? And do you want this to be advertised to buyer's agents during the listing? Remember, you absolutely can still offer commission. It will just no longer be cooperative, and it can't be advertised in the MLS. Your agent will discuss with you where and how else it can be advertised, and the best strategy for you in your negotiating position. Your agent should also have the conversation with you that whatever you decide at the moment of signing the listing agreement, you can change your mind later. Yep, either way. Even if you as the seller authorize advertising an offer of compensation on a website or via social media or anywhere else during the listing, sellers, your decision about offering such buy-side compensation will not be binding unless and until it's in the executed sales contract. Let's stop for a moment and walk through some scenarios. You may think you want to offer buy-side commission. And depending on your micro market, your agent will perhaps advise you to do so because it may increase the buyer pool for your property. But you might later change your mind. On the other hand, you may think you absolutely will not pay even a portion for the buyers because you think it will save you money and because you think it will hurt your negotiating position. But then you may actually change your mind based on the offer or offers you get. If you're deciding among multiple offers, you may decide to offer some or all of the commission as a concession you're being asked for because it's still the best net for you. As we've always done, your agent will advise you to look at the totality of any offers you receive, which might include potential price escalation clauses or appraisal waiver gaps or a variety of other terms that affect your bottom line in addition to the sales price. The potential ask for you to pay some or all of the buyer brokerage commission is now another factor to consider as you weigh a single or multiple offers. And again, there are a variety of ways you might want to do this should you want to. So let's look at that flow chart again. Lastly, the new third area you might see on a new listing agreement is that you may be asked to pay in some form an additional amount to your brokerage for your agent to do necessary work on your behalf with an unrepresented buyer. That is, a buyer without their own agent and their own brokerage representation. A great unknown in the industry right now is if these commission changes are going to lead to a noticeable rise in such buyers. Kind of the flip side of for sale by owner sellers we've been familiar with in the past. We do feel it's a possibility, especially given the way the media has portrayed the changes as leading to lower sales prices. To the extent an unrepresented buyer wants to tour your property, write an offer on your property, negotiate that offer, conduct an inspection, and transact on it, we, in our fiduciary duty to you, the seller, are going to have to do a lot more work. And it's going to be particularly tricky work because it will be new to us at first. And we know we must make sure we don't act as a dual agent unless we have your express authorization to do so. And we're going to have to get paid for this extra work. On the other hand, your agent will likely point out it's ill-advised to presumptively refuse to engage with such a buyer because we want your property to reach as wide a market as possible without a whiff of fair housing discrimination issues. I'm going to end this video and this series by busting the greatest myth of all. We've already seen that commissions going away is a myth. Sellers are still free to offer and will very likely do so, depending on their own buyer pool, price point, and other market conditions. And this is just not going to lead to some kind of price drops across the board in residential real estate. Why? Prices are not based on commission now. As with any commodity, housing prices are based first on supply and demand. Demand has been very high for 4 years, and we have seen how prices have consequently risen a great deal. List prices are secondly based on location, and thirdly and fourthly on condition and size. Those can change relative places. For example, an exquisite 2-bedroom condo on the lake in Lincoln Park is likely priced higher than a 3-bedroom bungalow in Berwyn that hasn't been updated in 40 years. But the commission sellers have always paid to their brokerages, which was understood to be shared in some way with that of the buyer's brokerage, had nothing to do with the recommended list price, nor the ultimate amount a buyer agreed to pay for a property. The truth is that whether for a buyer or a seller, we agents work extraordinarily hard to represent you. Just as you do, we work for compensation, which from now on is going to be obtained through a new route. I'll leave you with a new metaphor. When you enter a destination in Google Maps or Waze or whatever map app you prefer, you likely get several different route suggestions. It just happened to me and my friends when we went to see the Indigo Girls. Don't be anxious about these changes because no matter what, you're starting from where you are and you're ending at your destination. Hire an experienced agent who knows the community, who can answer all your questions, who works with a brokerage with a stellar reputation, and we will not only get you closer to fine, but just where you want to go with professionalism and grace.